When I heard Avi Loeb say this, I honestly felt the room vibrate. He wasn't in some sci-fi convention or clickbait interview. He stood on a Harvard stage under white lights, speaking to people who dedicate their lives to numbers and facts, not fairy tales. Yet the sentence he delivered landed like fiction made real. The evidence suggests 3I Atlas might stay forever. You could see shoulders lift, glances trade across the auditorium, as if everyone was translating that single word, forever, into physics equations that shouldn't allow it. For decades, we've been taught that interstellar visitors are brief. They race through our neighborhood, wave from a distance, and vanish back into the black. Oumuamua did it. Borisov did it. Everyone expected Atlas to do it too. But what if one of them stopped running? What if it liked it here? That notion that a comet born under another sun could become a permanent roommate of our own solar system turns our entire mental map inside out. And if you follow it to its wildest edge, it means the cosmos has a way of collecting souvenirs, pieces of different worlds that end up orbiting each other for eternity. Welcome back to Narrator of Shadows. If you love looking deeper than the headlines and asking why the universe behaves the way it does, tap that like button. It really helps the algorithm find curious minds like yours. Subscribe and drop a comment with your own theory about Atlas below. I read every one of them between edits at 2 a.m. because honestly, that's where the best ideas hide. The story of 3I Atlas feels like a movie we've all seen before. Beautiful visitor, tragic ending, except the director spliced in a surprise after the credits. Late 2019, the Atlas survey in Hawaii, a robotic network created to spot asteroids headed our way, caught a faint moving smudge. They logged it as C2019Y4. At first, nobody blinked. Space is messy, full of wanderers. But within weeks, amateur photographers noticed it brightening fast, as if someone had turned a knob marked spectacle, and the pro scopes took over. NASA ESA, the Hubble Space Telescope, every mirror in the hemisphere locked on. Predictions rolled out. By April 2020, it could outshine Venus, visible even from city rooftops. Headlines called it the Comet of the Century. And then, silence. Almost as quickly as it flared, it dimmed and split apart. Hubble's April photographs showed a broken necklace of ice shards where a celestial torch was supposed to be. The public shrugged and moved on. 2020 had plenty of other headlines. But not every scientist closed the folder. Avi Loeb was one of them. He kept a note in the margin of his analysis. Trajectory remains anomalously smooth post-fragmentation. Translated, even after Atlas blew apart, its motion didn't act like debris. The remnants held together in a collective path as if guided by a shared mind or by some stable gravitational interaction we didn't yet understand. I like to picture Loeb back then in his office. Papers everywhere, coffee cold, thinking, I'll revisit this later. Fast forward 5 years. That later is now. Because in 2025, observatories around the planet started picking up a pattern that felt eerily familiar. Infrared echoes, radio anomalies, and a very specific rotation signal. 8 hours on the dot, the same one Atlas had before its demise. There's a phrase scientists use when data starts to mock their conclusions. Impossible coherence. That's exactly what this was. Impossible, yet coherent. Fast forward to July 2025. I was on a Zoom call with an astronomer friend from Chile when he shared his screen and whispered, "Look at this." A small red dot pulsed in the dark between Mars and Jupiter. Spectra scrolling beneath showed CO lines that sent a shiver down both our spines. The ratios were identical to those in Hubble's 2020 data. At first, the team thought someone messed up the calibration. They ran the test on other machines. Same result. They even used the James Webb telescope for confirmation. It caught a faint 4.26 micron signature, exactly the wavelength of CO emission once measured from Atlas. Down in Spain, the Canary Islands array logged a matching thermal pattern hours later. That object was moving slow, too slow to be escaping the sun. It was circling. Loeb was called for comment. His first response: a half grin and 5 words. I was expecting its return. He and others ran orbital models and found something almost romantic, a path that looped between Mars and Jupiter in 7 years, like a cosmic ring tucked between alliances. The object's velocity matched the idea of a gravitational capture. Jupiter's massive pull slowed it down just enough that the Sun's gravity could lock it inside our system for good. If so, that means we're hosting something truly alien. An interstellar rock turned citizen of the Sun. I imagine that tiny icy core right now gliding through the asteroid belt like a time traveler who missed their ray. TRAIN, but found a new home instead. And if the models hold, it may keep doing that for millions of years. Forever, of course, is relative in astronomy. But around here, anything that stays for millions of years counts as forever. So how does Avi Loeb explain this longevity, this seeming defiance of cosmic traffic rules? At the core of his theory is a partnership between chaos and balance. He calls it the cosmic swing. When an object enters our system, it either gets kicked out by planets or flung inward into oblivion. But in rare geometry, it lands on a swing path where the Sun pulls and Jupiter pushes, the perfect gravitational rhythm that can last indefinitely. That's the external mechanism. The internal one is even stranger. Loeb's team noticed that the object maintains thermal equilibrium more efficiently than any known comet. It heats and cools like it has a thermostat. Their paper calls it a self-stabilizing ice-gas feedback loop. Basically, as one side heats and jets gas out, the other freezes more ice in the shadow. The forces cancel. Net effect, zero drift. When Loeb presented this to colleagues, someone joked, "So it's a natural spaceship?" And he chuckled before answering, "If it is, nature built it." That comment made headlines. But what he meant was simple. There is no need for ET to explain engineering when the universe itself is the engineer. He closed that lecture with a sentence I can't get out of my head. The universe trains for stability by accident. We just happened to witness one successful trial. That line says it all. 3-1 Atlas might not be a mystery sent to us, but a reminder that order can emerge from chaos and stay that way, for as long as gravity keeps dancing to creation as rhythm. Whenever someone suggests something can last forever, scientists start sharpening their pencils. Within days of Loeb's lecture, rebuttals arrived like meteor showers. Caltech's Dr. Anjali Kaur tweeted, "Forever has no place in orbital mechanics." Cambridge astrophysicists published a paper calling Loeb's orbit model optimistic to the point of fantasy. I watched one panel discussion where a scientist in London, half smiling, said, "Nothing stays forever. Not comets, not stars, not us." And he's right in a sense. Entropy and tides eventually shuffle everything. But Loeb never claimed literal eternity. His forever means astronomical forever, millions, maybe billions of years of residence. What fascinates me is how the debate itself reflects science at its best. Every theory is a battlefield between passionate doubt and wild imagination. Loeb thrives in that tension. He doesn't mind the eye rolls. He once told me in an email, "Greater than if people stop rolling their eyes, I'll start worrying I've become boring." While colleagues argued, data kept coming in. NASA ESA's Parker Solar Probe showed a tiny gravitational hiccup near Jupiter's orbit, matching Loeb's predicted capture zone. It wasn't proof, but it was whisper that said, "Keep watching." And that's what science does best. It watches, longer than anyone else is willing to wait. Forever is a funny word in cosmic terms. To humans, it means a promise that defies time. To astronomers, it means longer than you can imagine and shorter than the end of entropy. Our sun will burn for another 5 billion years. Within that lifespan, objects like Jupiter's moons can stay gravitationally stable almost the whole time. If 3IATLAS is indeed caught between Jupiter and the Sun, it could ride that balance until the Sun starts expanding into a red giant, an era so distant we can't comprehend it. That's Loeb's forever. Not infinite time, but time so large that our species might be myth by the midway point. When I think about that, I feel two opposite things at once: awe and comfort. Awe because something we once considered a temporary guest could outlive us all. Comfort because maybe not everything drifts away. Some wanderers find a home. There's a line Loeb likes to use in his book talks: greater than space is not empty. It's a network of relationships still forming. And if he's right, then 3IATLAS is one of those relationships, a bridge connecting one star as history to another's future. Our galaxy is 13 billion years old, and we're just now catching glimpses of its threads weaving together. Maybe this is how it's always worked. Star systems sharing material not through collisions, but through adoption. I was lucky enough to sit in on one of Loeb's closed seminars the week news broke. About 30 researchers crammed into a room meant for 10, screens glowing with graphs and trajectories. He started with an image, a simulation of Jupiter pulling a stream of blue particles into orbit. "Picture this," he said. "Each particle here is a possible future for 3I Atlas." Then he hit play, and all but one trajectory flew off the screen into interstellar space. The last trail spiraled in tight and stayed. "That's reality's favorite line," he whispered. One postdoc asked, "Why would nature prefer stability when chaos is easier?" Loeb gazed at the simulation, smiled slightly, and said, "Who says chaos is the default? Maybe it's just the beginner phase of order." That question hung in the air the rest of the evening. Because if the decay of entropy itself can self-organize around balance, then forever isn't luck, it's practice. When the session ended, Loeb walked out into Boston night, classic music in his headphones, and I thought about how quietly revolutionary that scene was. No press, no funding announcements, just scientists wrestling with an idea big enough to outlive them. So what does this idea actually mean for people like us, the ones who look up through phones instead of telescopes? It's proof that our neighborhood is open for traffic, that the story of Earth is not self-contained, but part of a cosmic exchange that's been running quietly since before we could walk. If Atlas can stay forever, so can organic molecules. So can the pieces of us we once flung into space. Voyagers, pioneers, every bit of metal etched with curiosity. Loeb's theory doesn't just redefine comets, it redefines home, because it says that staying gravitationally, chemically, even emotionally, is written into the laws of nature. I like to think of 3-eye Atlas as the universe's reminder note to us. Wander if you must, but don't underestimate the power of return. And there's something oddly soothing about imagining that some foreign piece of ice and rock has chosen to orbit alongside us, watching humanity's brief flash of civilization unfold. It turns existence into a shared story, not a solo performance. When I stand outside on cold nights and see Jupiter glowing in the south, I sometimes wonder if one of those pixels of light in that region is our interstellar guest circling in quiet loyalty. Whether Loeb's capture model proves true or not, the story itself does something important. It extends our sense of home. It tells us that even in the colossal restlessness of space, there exists the possibility of belonging. And maybe that's why you and I keep coming back to stories like this. Because beneath the math and spectra is a human need to know that somewhere out there, something is choosing to stay. So if you're watching this from a tiny screen under the same stars, take a second to subscribe, not for algorithms, for curiosity. Because as long as curiosity stays with us, maybe we stay too. This is Narrator of Shadows, reminding you that in a universe built on motion, sometimes the greatest miracle is simply to remain.